Hey guys, RetroRewinder here, coming at you with another episode of my series Morals in Video Game Hunting. Today the topic is going to be buying items from a retail store, hoping to resell or trade up to a better item for your own collection. Today I also have a guest with me, and welcome Ed.
Hi Trevor, thanks for having me on, I appreciate it.
How are you doing tonight, Ed?
Not too bad. We've had a few technical difficulties. We can't seem to get the audio figured out. Just kind of a pain in the butt. But other than that, it's been good. We recorded this about an hour ago, and everything went perfect. We had no issues, then played it. Well, you know what happened. You were here. We played it back, and the audio is all screwed up.
Okay, so let me explain this in a little more detail. Basically what I mean from buying from a retail store, I mean a store like Target or Walmart, Best Buy, or an actual video game store, someone that specializes in video games only. I'm not referring to like a Goodwill or anything like that. So I just wanted to clarify what I meant by retail. So my first question for you, Ed, have you ever purchased an item from a retail store knowing you were going to sell it or trade it for something better for your own collection?
Yeah, absolutely. I have no problems whatsoever doing that. I can think of one particular example, and I remembered to grab the box this time.
After I reminded you.
Exactly, twice. Knuckles Chaotix. This is a game that I picked up at an exchange for, I think I picked it up for $10 or $15 when it was selling for like $65. And then a few weeks later, I saw another copy at a different exchange about 45 minutes from the other, and it was also $15. So I bought two copies. And I have no problem saying that the reason I bought two copies was to sell the other one. So yeah, that's happened to me before. Absolutely.
I have also done the same thing. Actually, this I showed you, so I'm not going to put it in the camera as long as I did last time. This is a converter to play not Famicom, like I said the first time, but PC Engine games on your TurboGrafx. Typically, these sell for anywhere from $75 to $150 if it has the box. I bought two of these, one for $55 and the other one for $40, and I definitely sold the other one to get this one for free. This one ended up selling for $110, so that was pretty cool. Anyway, so there's multiple ways you can buy something from a retail store at a very discounted price. The first being a buy two, get one free, like if Target runs those deals, and you'll hear Target a couple times in this discussion. But have you ever done a buy two, get one free, only keeping one game but selling off two others, or keeping two and selling off one to make back some of the cost?
I've never done a buy two, get one free, but I have gone in before and found at a retail location items that were heavily discounted. And even though I didn't necessarily need more than one or two, I bought more. And an example I'll use is a few months back at BJ's Wholesale Club, which is obviously a wholesale club in this area. I don't know if it's everywhere. They were selling off all their Wii U accessories really, really cheap. And I ended up buying several of a couple of different items. And when I bought them, my intention was not necessarily to sell them, but it was to give them away to people. So I don't know that the fact that I wasn't going to sell them makes it any better or worse, but I bought them knowing that they were discounted with the intention of possibly selling them, I guess is what I'll say.
Now, moving on from the same type of thing to a Target deal that I mentioned to you, basically they run this deal where you can get $20 off of a game and add that on top of a price match. It is something that Target doesn't really foresee their patrons doing, but it's kind of a glitch in their system. Do you find any problem in taking advantage of a deal they're really not meaning to run? At a corporate level or a store level, does it make any difference?
Yeah, it does to me. I think if it's a mistake that was made at the store level and I take advantage of it, like let's say they mark something down for $5 that was supposed to have been $50, and I buy up 10 of them, they're now losing out on, I don't know, what is that, $450. That's a pretty big mistake to make, and if it was an employee at the store level that did it, they will end up taking all the blame, and if their manager finds out about it, they could really get in trouble, possibly even lose their job for a mistake like that. So in that situation, if I can tell it was a mistake made at the store level, I probably wouldn't take advantage of it. I would probably honestly go tell somebody, hey, this is the price on this, this is what it's supposed to be. Is this a mistake? or are you guys actually intending to sell it like this? I would give them the opportunity to fix it. But if it was something like you were saying at the corporate level, where it's a countrywide or regional-wide mistake, I would probably take advantage of it, because even though it's a similar situation where the person that made the mistake at the corporate level could still get in trouble, I wouldn't be solely responsible for getting them in trouble. So, I don't know, I guess it alleviates some of the guilt that I would feel because that person made a mistake. I know it's a fine line to walk, but I choose to walk it where I can.
So you'd be taking advantage of the mob mentality, is what you're saying.
I guess you could put it that way, mob mentality. I don't know that it's necessarily mob mentality more as much as I wouldn't feel solely responsible for getting the person in trouble, because even if I don't take advantage of it, I know the next 200 people will. So in that situation, it may as well be me that benefits from his trouble.
That's understandable. One of the other ways you can get a good deal is if the store mistakenly prices something. For example, you buy a DuckTales 2 for the price that they should be charging for DuckTales 1. Do you find any fault in taking advantage of that? Also, does it matter the type of store? Is it a mom-and-pop store, or is it the Exchange or Disc Replay?
Yeah, that does make a difference to me. If it's a mom-and-pop store, a store where, the owner, that's his sole source of income. He's making all his money to feed his family and pay his rent off of the sales of those video games, then I'm less likely to take advantage of a mistake like that. I would probably go up to whoever's at the counter and say, look, this is priced at this, it should be at this. And honestly, in that kind of situation where you're frequenting a store, run locally, you generally tend to have relationships with the people in those stores. So if you go up and you let them know when they make a mistake, you let them know that you're going to be honest with them, a lot of them will do the same thing for you. They might cut you a deal the next time you're in there on something else. So that can actually work in your benefit by telling them. But if it's a one store in a chain, and it's a chain like the Exchange where they generally treat people fair, but I know that if they think they can get away with it, they will happily pay somebody $5 for something and then charge somebody else $50. I don't feel as bad in that situation. I actually look for those types of things. For instance, with Knuckles Chaotix, I knew that it was marked wrong and I bought it, and no, I really didn't feel bad about it, because, it's in that situation, that employee is not likely to get in trouble, because if they priced it wrong, it's not like somebody's going to notice later. You go to the Exchange, I know, and the system they use is kind of weird. So it's not something they would probably end up getting in trouble for unless they did it all the time. The next person's going to come in and he's going to buy it up. And why should that guy get the deal instead of me? May as well be me, right?
Right. Now, one thing I'm curious, let's say you went in to get this DuckTales 2, and literally on the price sticker it says DuckTales, no 2. Would that make a difference?
No. I mean, the only difference it would make is that I would know which mistake they made. Otherwise, I have to assume that they priced it out mistakenly as DuckTales.
Okay, understandable. The last way that is typically a good way to get a good deal is just if they always underprice a game. For instance, the disc replays around me sell F-Zero GX typically for $4.99, $3.99, $5.99. It doesn't really go over $6. They also do the same thing with Animal Crossing. That game is always $3 to $4. And typically online, these games sell for $15 to $20. Do you ever buy the same game over and over again, knowing that you're just flipping them to get better deals for your, or not better deals, but using that money to buy things for your own collection?
I've never personally run into that situation where I go back to the same location and find the same low price. In most of the places I frequent, they will eventually catch on. Now, like I said earlier, I've found a good deal on a game at one location in the same chain, and then later found the same deal somewhere else where they made the same mistake but at two different locations. But never yet have I found one where I can continue to go back and take advantage of it. If I did run across that situation, yeah, I would milk that cow as long as I possibly could. As many times as I could get that deal, I would take it.
One thing I think about when I'm doing this, because like I said, I've probably purchased anywhere from 10 to 20 copies of this game. One thing I think about is, if I keep buying this game, are they eventually going to start raising the price? Is this going to hurt me in the long run? Does that thought ever cross your mind?
Well, no, because I haven't run into that situation. But my opinion on the matter is, let's say you didn't pay that price for it. Let's say you went in and you decided that you were going to pass up on it this week. How do you know that the guy that comes in 5 minutes later is not going to buy it? So now, instead of them noticing that you're coming in and buying the same game for the same price every week, now they notice that that game sells out, within 3 or 4 hours of them putting it on the shelf. It doesn't really matter who it's selling to. Eventually, they're going to notice that that game is constantly selling out very, very quickly, and they're going to raise the prices on it. So if I were you, like I said, I would just keep taking advantage of it until the price was no longer there.
That's a really good point. I never thought of, they're going to think this game is selling out within the first couple hours we put it out, not this guy is buying the same game over and over. They probably are looking at the rate at which they get rid of a game.
Yeah, if something's going to show up, it's probably more likely to show up when they're checking their sales statistics. And it depends on the location. I know with the exchange, they keep track of, at least the exchange in this area, they keep track of the number of copies they have within the store, the number of copies they have within the district. They keep track of how many they've sold and at what prices they sold. They keep track of all that stuff. So I would be more worried that they would eventually notice that they all sell quickly. I don't think it matters as much that it's you unless you're buying it off the exact same guy every time you go in there.
Which I have done multiple times, actually. One thing that I just thought of that I hadn't really talked to you when we first filmed this, you mentioned that depending on if a shop owner treats you well or if they're kind of an ass, you didn't use those words, but it could alter how you view buying things from them to sell. You might be a little more generous. Do times when it really has nothing to do with the person, but the way the store is ran, like personally, if I go into a mom and pop shop and they are literally charging 60% more than eBay, I am much more likely to take advantage of their slipping, I guess would be a good word to use. Do you ever consider like how they price items? If it's consistently overpriced, do you jump on those mishaps more often, even if it's a mom and pop, or do you try to be a little more generous even though they're definitely pricing over eBay?
Honestly, in most circumstances like that, where I've run into a location, whether it's a mom and pop shop or a chain or whatever, where they're constantly overpricing things significantly, I just stop going in there for a while. Basically, I'll let them sit there and suck on failure, because in most of the places I frequent, for the stuff that I'm buying, I'm the one that buys most of it. And I understand that I've probably priced myself out of the market by going in and buying all of the cheap stuff. But once they get to a certain point where I know I'm not going to find a good deal, or I'm very unlikely to find a good deal, I'll just stop going there. But to answer your question, yes, if there is a place, even if it's a mom and pop shop, and they always overprice things and they always gouge the customer, and I find something particularly cheap, yes, I will absolutely take advantage of that. The way I look at it, they've been taking advantage of me and all their other customers for a very long time. So it's about time that they got some of that themselves.
There's actually a video game store in my town. We only have like 10,000 people, so it's kind of surprising they have a video game store because it's a pretty small town. But this guy constantly overprices things, and he lies to me constantly. It's almost like he thinks I know nothing about video games. Mm-hmm. He tells me that, he sold this game on eBay for, I think he told me he sold Earthbound cart only for $500. This was after it had dropped down in price to like $150. I was like, I can guarantee you did not sell your copy of Earthbound for $500. And he tried to tell me that he has this timing schedule where if an item sits in his store for a month, he automatically puts it on eBay. But yet I'll go in 4 months later and the same game is there. So, but definitely like you were saying, if a shop owner tends to, dick you around a little bit or along those lines, I will make them pay by taking the deals that they're giving out for sure.
Yeah, if it's somebody that is willing to take advantage of people, they're not going to care. If you're honest with them, they're not going to care if you tell them when they've got something underpriced. They're just out to make as much money as possible. And that's fine. They're in business. If that's the way they want to run their business, that's okay with me. But I'm not going to want to shop there.
I think that's all I had. I think that went a little quicker than the last one, actually. Did you have any final thoughts on this subject matter?
A lot of people like to pretend that it's a terrible thing that you go out and buy and resell. You know, they'll want to call me a reseller or you a reseller. And I guess we are, because we resell things. But it's a different situation. I'm not going out with the express purpose of buying something and charging as much as I can for it to make an extra buck. I'm going out, and if I happen to see something that is an extra for me, that is a particularly good deal, I will then buy it with the intention of funding my collection. And I think anybody that has a large collection, unless they're independently wealthy, kind of has to find alternate ways to fund that collection. Because honestly, if I had to pay for this out of my own paycheck, I would have like a 20th of what you see sitting here. The only reason I have this much is because I will find those extras when I can for a good deal, and I'll sell them off or trade them off to get other items that I want. So I think for a lot of those people out there that think it's a terrible thing, it's not. I don't gouge people with my prices. When I do resell, I resell at a reasonable price. When I do trade, I try to make sure that my trade is even at worst, or at best, give the other person a better deal. I'm not out there to make money. I'm not out there to take advantage of people. I'm just out there to try and make sure that I can fund my collection and I can continue to get the things that I want. So I think there's a balance to be had there between doing what's best for you and not taking advantage of other people. And I try to strike that balance.
One thing I kind of noticed is that the people that typically say that resellers are awful, people that resell stuff, are not YouTubers. I don't know if you've ever noticed that, but the people that are actually out there putting themselves out on YouTube seem to be the ones that are willing to admit they do sell. I think it's the people that don't have profiles, that they have nothing to lose. They're just going to call out people because, who cares what somebody thinks, I guess. But I've just noticed that from a personal.
Hey, sometimes people are contrary just because they want to be contrary.
Right. Well, Ed, I really appreciate you helping me out on this and being part of this cool series.
Sure.
Thanks so much for joining and doing all. You're the one that is recording everything and had to deal with the frustration of that.
That's right. I'm the one that screwed everything up the first time around. And trust me, the first recording, the first show was much better. Trevor was brilliant.
Much more brilliant. And I had a little more to drink through that, so...
Yeah, I think the alcohol is making you slur it up a little bit. But thank you very much for having me on, man. I really appreciate that you asked me.
Yes, thank you so much.